This is Joe narrating a PowerPoint. This is from Kaplan, page 448, Lesson 3 in Civics and Government, the levels and branches of government. So our national government is controlled by the Constitution. We have a system of federalism in the United States where power is shared between the national government and the various states. Back when our country was first set up, there were 13 separate colonies which acted kind of like independent countries. The first Constitution of the United States was called the Articles of Confederation, where the states were joined in a loose alliance, kind of like the European Union in Europe. This did not work, so that the Constitution of the United States was then drawn up, giving more power to the federal government, but still recognizing the powers of the states. At the national level, we have three branches of government. Article 1 of the Constitution talks about the legislative branch and the powers within that branch. That is the Congress, which includes the Senate and the House of Representatives. Article 2 in the Constitution talks about the executive branch, or the presidency, and the powers that the president has. And Article 3 talks about the judicial branch, which is the federal court system, including the Supreme Court. So there are powers specified for each branch of the government, and there are checks and balances so that one branch can have some control over what the other branches do, and we'll talk about this later. So this is the head of the executive branch of the national government, President Barack Obama. This is the housing given to the president, and includes office space for the president, the vice president, and his staff members, or her staff members. This is the White House, which you can set up tours for when you go to Washington, D.C. You just have to contact your congressman before you go there. This is the Vice President of the United States, Vice President Joe Biden. If something were to happen to the president and he were to become incapable of leading the country, the vice president would step in. This building is where the legislative branch does their job. This is the U.S. Capitol building within a walk of the White House. It sits at one end of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. These are the two Pennsylvania senators, according to the Constitution. Each state, no matter what the population of that state, has two representatives in the Senate. So, for example, a state like California, which has 35 million people, has two senators, and a state like Wyoming, which has 500,000 people, also has two senators. In Pennsylvania, these are our two senators. Senator Bob Casey on the left and Senator Pat Toomey on the right. Senators serve 6 years. 1/3 of the Senate members are up for re-election every 2 years, so that over a 6-year cycle the Senate will be completely replaced, or incumbents, meaning people who are already serving in the Senate, will be re-elected. This is a map of Philadelphia with an overlay of the congressional districts for deciding who is our representative in the House of Representatives at the national level. There are three congressional districts within Philadelphia. Here is shown two. There's also one in Northeast Philly. This is the representative from District 2, Chakafata. This is Representative Brady from District 1 in Philadelphia. And this is Representative Brendan Boyle from District 13 in Northeast Philadelphia. Every state has 2 senators, but in the other House of Congress, the House of Representatives, the number of representatives is determined by the population for each state. The more population, the more representatives. So Wyoming, for example, with 500,000 people, only has 1 state representative in National Congress. This is the person who's third in line for the presidency. The president, then the vice president, then the Speaker of the House would become president. This is Paul Ryan. The Constitution does not specify how many Supreme Court justices there are to be, but traditionally there have been 9 justices. Currently there are 8 serving justices because they're waiting for a replacement for Antonin Scalia, who died a few months ago. The Supreme Court justices are appointed by the President, affirmed or confirmed by the Senate, and then they serve for life. They are expected to make impartial decisions, which means decisions that are fair to all sides. There is 1 Chief Justice, or head of the Supreme Court. This is Chief Justice John Roberts. This is the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. It's right behind the Capitol building. Again, it is open for tours, just like the Capitol building. And you can actually step into the Supreme Court hearing room, which, considering the importance of the decisions made, is a relatively small room. This is an aerial view of Washington, D.C. Towards the upper left, you can see the Washington Monument, and more distant than that is the Lincoln Memorial. And here is the Supreme Court on the lower right. Here is the Capitol building, where the laws of our national government are made. And here is the White House, where the President has his offices and residence. Our Constitution was written so that no one branch of the government has absolute power. This is a system called checks and balances. For example, the legislative branch can pass a law, but the President has to sign that law before it takes effect. In addition, the judicial branch has to declare a law constitutional or unconstitutional if the law is challenged by anyone. There are other checks and balances as well. For example, the President has the job of appointing Supreme Court justices, but the Senate has to confirm the President's nominations. Besides the national government, there is a state government in every state. For example, in Pennsylvania, the center of the state government is in Harrisburg, where the star is on this map. This is the Capitol building in Harrisburg, looking very much like our national Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And the head of the executive branch in Pennsylvania is the governor. Currently, it's Governor Tom Wolf. The Pennsylvania government also has a legislature and a judicial system as well. The cities in Pennsylvania, or counties in Pennsylvania, also have local governments. We have a city government in Philadelphia. This is the head of the executive branch in Philadelphia, Mayor Kenney. Philadelphia also has a legislative and a judicial branch as well. This is City Hall in Philadelphia, where much of the city government has offices.